Welcome back to the kitchen build, everyone. This time we're going to be covering lighting, and the bigger umbrella of lighting is going to be the cabinet lighting. So we have under cabinet lighting, we have in cabinet lighting, and that in cabinet lighting is going to be basically is going to cover or finish up or allow us to like wrap up the saga of the upper cabinets. Every upper cabinet that has a shelf, which is all of them, has under shelf lighting, and that's what we're going to get into this time because we actually need the shelves to actually go in there. If you've been following along with the build, as we've been doing anything that's going to have shelves in them, they all have these aluminum bus bars in there, and that is going to be to power the light bars. This is one of the light bars. It fits into a groove in the underside of the shelf, and it has these little spring-loaded brass tab things on the ends. And those are going to contact the bus bars and get power to the light. So no matter where you put the shelf, the lights will work without having an actual wire connecting this light to the power source. And since the top side of the top shelf is actually the top of the cabinet, I already have one installed up there, and all the other cabinets have a groove cut in the top to receive the top light bar. And just to show you how that works, I have this cabinet here just mocked up real quick. So the top one comes on like that, and to show you how these work, once you drop your shelf in, those tabs contact, and then power is transmitted or transferred to the LED light bar thing. LEDs inside of there, and that's what gives you your light. So we need a lot of shelves, so we're going to be in the shop for a bit making shelves. So for everyone who's been sad about all the maple I've been painting, here is the stuff I've been saving for the shelves. This is the good stuff, the wide, more interesting looking stuff that we're going to use to make the shelves, because almost all of these are not painted. All the interior stuff is clear coat, but the stuff in the pantry will be painted. So I have my list here of all of the various shelves I need to make, the different sizes, and where they all go. And there are 33 shelves, which is, you wouldn't think is that many, but there's that many shelves in this whole kitchen pantry setup. So the painted ones that are going to be in the open cabinetry in the pantry, I'm going to do those last. They can be glued up out of whatever size pieces. The biggest boards I have here are 11 inches, and that's going to be the correct size for the hutch. So there are 11 shelves for the hutch out of 11-inch material, and then we can kind of go from there. The other uppers, they are a 12-inch shelf, so I'll need to add some material on. And because with these shelves, you're kind of looking up at them, I'm going to add that material to the front edge, and the light bar is going to go in the glue seam. So that should help to hide that seam. And we'll have some glue ups for like the appliance garage, because that one is a 21-inch deep shelf. So I'm gonna get to milling and chopping and cutting and gluing and all that glamorous stuff. So there's the first round of stock prep. These are all planed down to final thickness. They still need to be ripped and cross-cut, but we'll do that all together. And we're going to start on the next batch of stuff. Here's some more boards. So I still need a couple more shelves for the two upper cabinets, one each. But first today, I want to get the shelves for the the pantry, the ones that aren't going to be painted, the ones that are in the cabinet with the bypass doors. And I have been saving these pieces here with some nice crazy spalting. So I'm thinking that we're going to do some spalted shelves for that cabinet. So I'm going to get those made and then kind of look for some more pieces for those two uppers. And then I think we need to get into the ones that will be painted after that. Yeah, there's 10 painted shelves, and then the bypass door one, there's 6 shelves. So 6 of these spalted shelves, and then we'll get into finding 10, 10 painted shelves. Finally on to the last ones. These are the painted shelves, painted small shelves for the pantry. So it's just made up of all of the scraps and offcuts that are laying around. And for these, I'll glue them up into blocks first, or into panels first. They're over thickness right now. So once these dry, I'll joint and plane them as a unit. It's a little bit easier to do it that way, since these are kind of small anyway, and they don't have to worry about getting all of these pieces all nice and pretty before this step. This reminds me of cutting boards. All the years I made cutting boards, this is basically it. Glue all your random pieces together and then joint and plane a whole block as a single unit. So that takes care of all of the stock prep. That's a lot of material for shelves. And before jumping forward, I thought I'd share a little mistake I made, because I know you guys like when I make mistakes. This is, I guess, more of an oversight than anything. My list of shelves and quantities, this is not a list of shelves. This is a list of light bars. The number of shelves relative to light bars is n-1. So I noticed that when I was going through and working on that second batch for the pantry. I have one extra hut shelf, but otherwise it worked out that I didn't have enough for the uppers, -1, which was the correct number. I made this list like 3 months ago when I was doing my previous round of purchasing things, and this was to figure out all the light bars and the lengths that I needed, and I kind of forgot about that small little detail. Anyway, these are all ready for final dimensioning, so they're all over width, and obviously haven't been cut to length yet, so that's what I'm going to run through next. Rip everything to the width that I need for the particular shelves, and then cross cut them all to whatever length that they need to be. Everything is different. There's not a whole lot of uniformity with all this. Okay, there are all the shelves all sanded. Let's head off to the finishing shop and start spraying these things. For the finish on the shelves, I'm using a clear conversion varnish. This is the same product as the white stuff that I'm using on everything else. Well, I guess the color stuff that's in the pantry. Same stuff, just without the pigments in it. I'm not too worried about like ambering, like on the island and all the white oak. We've been doing a water-based finish there that is to prevent the look of ambering, but since the interiors of all the cabinets are maple with a oil finish or an oil varnish type finish on there, it's got that amber hue already. So I'm not worried about trying to prevent that. We're gonna make it all kind of look the same and be a much warmer tone than the white oak. Same exact process as everything else I've done. Just the finish list looks different. That's it. Less white. Still takes a catalyst and then still uses the same thinner. And then in theory, I guess it should lay down the same as the other stuff. So it should go pretty much the same as everything else that I've finished so far. So while the shelves are working through the finishing process, I'm going to start on some of the wiring here, and we'll cover I guess all the lighting that's going to be in the upper cabinets, starting with the in-cabinet shelf lighting, since that's kind of what we're working on right now. I've shown all of this before in the upper cabinets video, but I have it all laid out here so you can kind of see it all nicely before it gets mounted up in this area and becomes a lot more confusing. Here are all the components for the under-shelf lighting all kind of laid out here. And at the core, we have the driver, which converts the wall voltage to DC. This is a 24-volt driver for 24-volt lights. So we have the input for power on one end here, and then the other ports on here, we have 4 outputs, so it can output to 4 different lights or light systems. We're only going to be using one. And then on the side, this one is switchable, so it does have a port for switches. So we're going to flow through things here in 2 separate ways. The power output to the lights, and then we'll come back and take a look at the switches which are over there. So from the power output of the driver, that's going to come across this cord to this little junction block thing. That's going to split the power for the positive and negative. I did it backwards, positive and negative, and send it out in either direction. And from there, we have these little doodad things here, which are going to go into the positive and negative terminals. And these are the things that are going to provide power to the bus bars, which are already mounted inside the cabinet. These have these little, I don't know, flange things get mounted on there. And then inside the cabinet somewhere, you have these things mounted so that the little brass doodad there contacts the bus bar somewhere and provides power to it. So that bus bar is energized. So you have a positive bus bar and a negative bus bar, and then anywhere you put one of your lights that has the same exact little doodads on the ends, those are going to contact those bus bars and get power, and your light is going to turn on. So that's how the lights are provided power wirelessly. There's no wires running to them. They're just getting these are the wires. You're getting a negative wire and a positive wire through this piece of aluminum. So that's how all of the power gets to the light. Now, as far as switching goes, if you don't plug anything into the switch, the thing is just going to turn the light on anytime this thing receives power. So if you have like an external switch or something to turn that power on, that's how you do that. But if you want a little more intelligence, like we're doing here, you have the switch port. I want the lights to turn on anytime any of the doors are open. So on this cabinet, we have 3 doors. There's only one switch port on the driver. So for that to work, we have this additional little block here. It takes that one switch port and converts it into 3. So if any of the switches turn on, they'll be the same for the driver as any single switch turning on. So it makes it so you can split that single switch port to 3. So from here, we go out to the actual switches, which I have these guys, which are infrared switches. So if they're covered up, they're off. If they're uncovered, they're on. And those get mounted into the front lower rail of all the cabinets. And those are going to be connected with these wires to this thing. All 3 of them connect to this. This connects back to the driver. So that is all of the components and things which are going to be mounted up in here. So I'm going to start running through and installing all of this into the wiring chase on the underside of the cabinets, and then we can see if the lights actually work when the shelves show up. And through the magic of it's tomorrow, it's the next day, the shelves are back from the finishing shop. So I'm going to go ahead and install these in here so you can kind of see how that goes. So again, those are the light bars. They have a positive and negative end, and you need to make sure that you put the positive end to the side that you assigned as positive when we did the splitter block thing that sent the power in either direction. So I have been putting positive to the left on all the cabinets to keep it consistent. So when I install these, it goes positive on the right because we're upside down, and these things just get press fit into that groove we cut, and we can feed it into the cabinet, and when we drop it in place, the light should turn on. this top bar that goes into the top of the cabinet, when I cut this groove, I didn't have this light bar, so I erred on the side of making it too big, which is what it is right now. It's a little too oversized to actually hold this thing in here really securely. So I'm gonna have to glue this in at some point when I'm gluing things, so I'll do it later. So that's the final look with the lights all on. And I think at this point I can go ahead and hang the doors. I kept them off so I could easily feed the shelves in rather than trying to work around a bunch of doors feeding these 4.5 foot long shelves into this tiny cavity or through this tiny opening or whatever. And now I'm doing the final install of the hinges, so I'm replacing the Phillips heads with the proper slotted head screws. Phillips heads are going to be a lot easier to actually hang the door or like maneuver the screwdriver or drill or whatever while you're trying to like hold the door and get the thing on the hinges and everything. So I will hang the door with a Phillips screw, and then I go back and start filling the other holes with the slotted screws. And it's feel free to debate in the comments whether or not you clock your screw heads or not. I typically don't, because I'm a weirdo. They're not clocked. I typically try to do some kind of pattern with them. But because they're not clocked, that tends to drive some of you crazy, which makes my heart feel good for some reason, some sadistic reason. Yeah. Oh, this is wrong. Okay, here is the final look. When you open the doors, the lights fade on, and then when you close any of the doors, they just gradually fade out, and it works on any door. And the camera does not like those LEDs. But that's the gist of the in-cabinet lighting. Someone's got to clean up this mess of wires down here. So next, let's take a quick look at the under-cabinet lighting. So it's actually very similar to the other one, but maybe a little less complex because there's less things. Same thing again, we have a driver, but instead of using the switch port on here and having some kind of intelligent switch, this one is going to be powered by or switched by one of these guys. So we have a switch over on the refrigerator panel, and that will allow us to turn these on and off. It actually has a dimmer too, so you can dim these. That's really the only difference, is instead of all the stuff that comes out of the switch port here, we're just switching this back here on the line power. The output is pretty similar as well. We have a cable here that's going to connect to this ribbon lighting strip. So instead of this going out to some bus bars and then the bus bars powering the ends of the strip light, we are just powering the strip light directly, and it's fixed in place. So the connector that actually connects to the ribbon cable or the ribbon light has a little channel under here. You slide the ribbon underneath there, and then when you close this little lever thing, it actually pierces and connects to the wiring inside of there, and that is the connection to actually power the light strip. So now if I plug this thing in, the lights turn on, and this is what's going to go inside of this channel. So this channel houses the light, makes it look a little prettier, and there's also a diffuser on here that diffuses the light, makes it a little more uniform. Now that's the general gist of the entire system. The one thing that's going to be a little bit different is that we are essentially going to be using a really long connector here that's going to travel through the wall, or actually it already travels through the wall and pops in underneath the sink. And that's where all of the under cabinet lighting meets up. So I have a wire for under there that's run through the wall to here, and we have a wire for that light as well. So all of those 3 points all converge under the sink, so we can put one driver under the sink and control that one with this switch right here. So just imagine this exact setup, but we're going to cut and extend this thing so that this can go under the sink. So if you recall back to when we made these cabinets, we made this little channel in here which receives the piece of channel. And I think these are supposed to be like glued in or something, but I went ahead and countersunk some screw holes to attach this thing to the cabinet. And I know from doing the other one that I need to partially install this light strip in here, and I just cut a little notch in the channel. That's how I get the whatever the power cable to actually escape from the channel and go up into the cavity. So it looks something more like this when it's installed. Ugh. Okay, I'm just going to see how much I'm going to need here. You have to cut at the closest little cut point or connection point, which is going to be a little short at the end. Let me try and cut it back here and see if we can get it to fit in nicely. Might be a little too much. I think it'll look okay. Once the diffuser's on there, you won't be able to tell that the light kind of ends early. Let's do that. And with that diffuser on there, it should make it a little less intense. It's better. That's nice. You can actually see the countertop now and how much crap I have all over it. Lovely. Okay, last thing to do is going to be to get this actually wired up. So we have the remote location hooked up and everything. So these are the wires the electricians put in the wall back when we were framing. And these are what's going to extend this little cable here into the under the sink area. Now they didn't label these, which doesn't really matter, but I would kind of like to know which pair of wires under the sink go to each location. So I have those connected together, and we're going to check the other end with a multimeter on continuity. So I can just go through here and check each pair and see which one beeps, because that would be the one that is over there next to the stove on the right side. Please don't tell me none of them. Oh, come on, really? That one. Okay. Let's label that so we know that's that one. Should have bought a longer lead. I'm just doing the same thing down here for now, just to test this. So there's your extended lead. That's all we did was make that longer. So if I plug this in here, I plug in the driver, and then go over here and turn the switch on. Not live yet, I guess. I thought they had all this stuff working. Yeah, it's dead. Okay. So I plug in the driver. I should, look at that. It works. Nice. I like this. This is nice. We don't have this now. So with that under cabinet lighting wired up, that is kind of it for all of the wiring down here in the electrical chase. So now I can install the cover panels, and on those I just put some little slots in there to give some air circulation, room, whatever, around the driver. These are kind of intermittently used, but I did leave them on overnight one time to see how hot that driver gets if it's left on for like 8 hours straight and it wasn't really even warm to the touch. So I'm not super worried about the airflow around that driver, but you know, for a little bit of bonus points, we got some air slots in there. So these will just get screwed to those little riser pieces underneath there to the, whatever, the front and back of the plug mold and that light bar, and that'll complete the look of the underside. And that's kind of it. One of the things on here is I was kind of thinking I would do like magnets so you didn't see any hardware, but at this point I don't really want to deal with that. So I'm just using screws, and I'll use the same screws as I do on the hinges. So it kind of matches the overall look of all the other hardware in the kitchen. It doesn't feel out of place or weird. So before I put the bottom panel onto this one, I want to show you what I have going on under here for the in-cabinet lighting, because it's a little bit different. We have 3 different zones. So we want this to be operating as its own zone. If you open or close this door, you want just these lights to come on. It's the same thing on this side, but the top middle cavity is similar to the other side where you have any one of these 3 doors open. You want this section to come on. So a little bit more complexity. So under here we have the driver, which is a lot bigger than the other ones because I have a lot more lights in this cabinet, doing 1 driver versus doing 2 or 3 for each of the zones. This driver specifically, you can plug in this guy here, and this allows you to have multiple different switching zones on 1 driver, and they just clip together just in the middle there. And this still needs to be screwed down, but whatever. It allows you to put a switch lead into each of these and then have an output to up to 2 different zones for power going out. So I have the left hutch, the right hutch, and then the middle thing. So for the middle one, it's just like all the other ones. We come off onto one of these box things again to get our 3 doors onto 1 switch going into here to then switch out this yellow cable right there. So a little bit different than the other side because there's a little more stuff going on, but still kind of the same concept overall. And now real quick for the lighting here in the sink base and in the corner. I don't have, I'm short a few wires for switches. I don't have the doors wired on switches yet, but this is a look at how it will look. Pretend you open the doors and these turned on by themselves. This is the overall look. I am using exactly the same system, the same exact parts as the under cabinet lighting. So this is a leftover section of that light bar with the strip lights and the channel and the diffuser and everything. You got to buy this stuff in like 8-foot lengths. So I had leftovers enough to do here and here without having to buy anything else. So that's kind of nice. Plus, so when you open the sink base doors, you'll have a lot of light to be able to see whatever you're trying to get out here. And the same thing in the magic corner, those back basket shelf things will be illuminated as well. It's the same thing back there. It's the same, that stuff. It's the short section mounted in there, and there's your lighting for your dark base cabinets. Because I think these are like the only ones that are not drawer type things that actually open it into the space. I guess this one technically opens into the space, but you know, whatever. A little more light. So now lastly, so it can be done with upper cabinet stuff, the closure mechanism, I am working on installing those as well. So that is the magnets that are in the door and in this lower rail here. So if you remember back to the upper building video, I went and I bought these closure mechanisms you can buy off the shelf that are pre-made to figure out what kind of plungers in here and how these actually worked. So this is a soft plunger. So these are all the soft plungers that I pulled out of here because the magnets that I got are far more powerful than these ones. So there was nothing soft about this closing. These are now the medium firmness in there, and now they actually close with a little bit of a softer thing. I can swap, well, I put that cover on there now. If I swap out the, these things to the soft ones, once you get within the range of the magnet, it goes and hard closes quite a bit. So that's my adventure with that. I got a whole bag of these soft plungers now to do something with. Now lastly, since we're on the topic of lights, I was going to install all of the lighting in here, but so far those 3 lights there are the only 3 that we have picked and actually procured. So I'm going to get these things thrown up there real quick, and that'll be it for this one. I like to pick up some more light bulbs, but otherwise those are up there. All of the under cabinet lighting is working. The in cabinet lighting is great as well. You open the doors and the lights come on, and it's just it's pretty cool. I like it quite a bit. So that is going to do it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the cabinet lighting, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.